Hi, welcome back to Flavor of Riverside. My name's Chef Robert Sevely, and I'm here with a very special guest, Angela Alcé.
Yay.
She is the owner, operator, and chef of Dat Grill, which is in the Food Lab here in Riverside, and Dat Island, that's in Redlands.
Redlands, California.
And so we've been talking about wanting to cook together for a while.
I know,
And
I
so
know.
this is a lot of fun. I'm really excited. So why don't you tell the camera what we're going to be cooking today? So what are the 4 dishes that we're doing?
Okay, well, you can't say Creole without saying beignets.
Beignets.
So we're going to start off with our delicious beignets. We're also going to have Creole meatballs. And when you say Creole and you think about Haiti, which is where our family is from, you cannot go to Haiti without having griot, which is our signature dish of that island.
It is.
It's a
delicious.
delicious,
I've had it.
succulent pork, and you can't have Caribbean food without having red beans and rice.
And red beans and rice.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it all sounds fantastic.
I know it is. It's delicious.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get started. So we'll be right back with Angela and the owner, operator, and chef of Dat Island and Dat Grill at the Food Lab. We'll see you guys in just a second. So now we're gonna do red beans and rice.
Yes.
So I'm excited about this dish. I love red beans and rice, and
So do I. So do I.
what are we looking at? So what?
Well, I'll just tell you something right off the bat. Keep in mind that we're talking about Caribbean red beans and rice,
Okay.
which are completely different than Southern or red beans and rice that you get from Louisiana.
Right.
Typically, if you get a red beans and rice from Louisiana or from the South, the beans are cooked and slow cooked and stewed, and then they're poured over a red beans and rice.
Gotcha.
When you go to the Caribbean, you're going to hear 2 terms interchangeably, red beans and rice, or you're going to hear peas and rice.
Okay.
But the bottom line is what's happening is the beans and the rice are cooked together. All the seasoning is together. So it's a lighter, flakier rice and beans.
Because too often I see that it's like steamed rice with just like red beans mixed into it, and you're like,
Yeah.
it's a little underwhelming.
It is.
And
it is.
your guys' red beans and rice is just absolutely delicious.
Yeah, and what people tend to do is a lot of times they see red beans and rice, they cook the 2 products separately, and then they fold them in together, and
Yeah.
it just really doesn't do it. You need the starch from the beans and all the flavor from the rice together that creates beautiful, traditional Haitian, Caribbean red beans and rice.
Okay, so where are we starting?
Typically, you'll find people when they make red beans and rice, they're using those large kidney beans. I don't particularly like the large kidney beans. I think the smaller baby beans have a lot more flavor to them. So this is the one that we use at the restaurant.
And that's right at about like 1 pound of beans, right? That I can get
Exactly.
from the grocery store. So the little red beans, and it's just the red beans. Like when I bought these for the class, yeah, there's just these little red beans. And then, and if you don't mind, so then that's what they look like cooked, and that's what they look like dried in
Right.
comparison. And so, great. So how do we get it to this point here? What are we looking at?
Okay, well, there's a little magical step that I do before this. We've drained the red beans out of the water and reserve the water. And then I just brown the red beans in a little bit of garlic and a little oil, just lightly. We're not frying them, we're just simmering them. We don't want to overcook the garlic by any means, and we're using fresh garlic. And then we're pouring those back into the water, and that's where we are at this point.
Okay.
Okay, so the next step, all this magical goodness is going on right here. So we have our water, we have our red beans, and then here are our seasonings. In your local grocery store, you could buy the minced garlic.
Right.
But I don't like that little jarred
No.
garlic. I don't know what's in there. I don't know how long it's been in there. I would
Feel
prefer
the same way.
I would prefer for you guys just to buy fresh garlic, and that's if you really want a really nice flavor. So we mince that really fine. That's approximately about, what do you say, about 4 garlic cloves. And I add 2 tablespoons of Hungarian paprika. If you're not excited about that, you think it's too spicy, believe me, it really
Is
isn't.
Hungarian paprika spicy or?
People, when I say the word paprika, people tend to think
Spicy.
spicy, and it's not.
It's not.
It's just nicey smoke. I like the smoke flavor.
Right, right.
And it's very light, and it's just very aromatic.
Right.
But I always have to explain that because people automatically think it's going to be spicy, and it's not at all.
Right. It's the red color that throws them off.
I think it is. Confusing it with cayenne.
Exactly.
And so this is another beautiful thing. This is our fresh thyme.
Yes.
So we have that minced, and that's we're going to add the fresh thyme right into the water
So
as
one
well.
bunch of thyme.
One bunch of the fresh thyme, and then this little special ingredient. When you
I've been
think,
eyeballing that, wondering
yeah,
what
now,
it is.
this is I call it. It's not really a secret ingredient,
Yeah.
but it's a very common ingredient for Haitian cuisine. And what a lot of Haitian cooks do is they take a bunch of fresh parsley,
Yeah.
fresh cilantro, 2 of these delicious, in the States we say habaneros,
Yeah.
but in the islands we refer to them as pima or Scotch bonnet.
Yeah.
So it has a slight variation. The oils taste a little bit different. So we're pureeing parsley, fresh thyme, a little bit of pima, and some garlic with just water. So it's kind of like our pesto.
Yeah.
And so this flavors a lot of ingredients that you'll find throughout Caribbean cuisine. So this is about a quarter of a cup
Okay.
that we're adding to that.
It smells delicious.
Yeah, it is.
Not just this, that smelled delicious. This is smelling delicious.
So we go back to that
really
whole,
coming together.
Yeah, we go back to the whole thing about Caribbean food. It's layers and layers of
Just
flavors.
building flavors,
Building
right?
flavors. And then you can also buy a store-bought Creole seasoning.
Yeah.
But basically, what we're dealing with is a cayenne, a very good oregano, salt, pepper. It does have cayenne in it.
So this is
garlic.
your own blend.
So this is our own blend.
And when are we going to see this on the market
Wouldn't
shelves?
that be lovely? I think if you,
I think it would
if
be.
you talk to my husband or
Yeah.
my son Fabrice, they want to put everything in a bottle.
Yeah, that island's Creole seasoning.
That island's Creole seasoning. But there are a couple of good brands right on this shelf that
Right.
you can buy. But once again, a lot of times they really want you to watch your seasonings when you're
Yeah.
purchasing them because we just don't know really how long they've been there.
So then, okay, so the Creole seasoning,
And then a couple tablespoons of fresh parsley. That's
parsley.
it. Now, what we're going to do, can you raise, we got the temperature, we got it raised
Yeah,
up.
it's on high.
It's on high. It's going to come to a light boil. And then we're going to use approximately 4 cups of parboiled rice.
Okay.
Now, the trick is with Creole red beans and rice, what you'll want to do, I'm going to add one more half a cup.
Okay. And can you tell us the difference between like regular rice and parboiled rice?
Okay, when I'm at home,
Yeah.
a lot of times I'll mix it up. I'll use like a jasmine rice just to add another layer of flavor.
Yeah.
But parboiled rice, what it's done is it just cooks more even.
Right.
The rice has been treated, so it's when people say rice is so difficult to make.
Yeah.
If you're making red beans for the first time, I would suggest you try parboiled rice
Right.
because it's mistake proof.
Right.
And what we're going to do is we're going to bring that to a boil, and then we're going to wait until all the water has reduced. Now this is
Okay.
the other trick because people want to keep stirring and stirring
Right.
and stirring.
And it's not a risotto.
It's not a risotto, so you don't need to keep doing that. You just let the rice and let the beans just marry together. They're having a little party going on in there.
Do we cover it or we cook it uncovered?
We're going to cook it until all the water has evaporated, moisture, until it's just a light film of broth on the top. Then we put the lid on it, reduce the heat, and we let that simmer. Let's just say it's already reduced.
Okay.
So we put the heat on it, put the lid on it, and then we let that simmer on low for another 40 minutes.
Okay, so we're gonna go to low.
Uh-huh.
And I'm gonna move it to the back burner.
Okay.
Is what we're gonna do. And then from there, we're going to be right back. Do you know what we're making next? Are we doing meatballs? Or
Let's go right into Creole meatballs. That would be great.
So we'll be right back. We'll go into Creole meatballs. Probably our red beans and rice will be done
All
sometime
finished.
in there. And we'll see you all in just a minute. All right, so now we're making Creole meatballs.
Meatballs. They're delicious. In Creole, we refer to them as boulettes.
Boulettes.
Boulettes. So in a few minutes, we're going to have delicious red beans and rice and boulettes.
Can we turn our focus to the red beans and rice? So
Absolutely.
what's going on? Look at that.
So in our previous...
It's amazing.
Yeah, so it started to reduce. Now, this is the part where everyone makes the big mistake.
Okay.
They want to stir it. You don't need to stir it.
Don't stir it.
You just want to lift lightly, and you'll see the rice is starting to
It's
get...
still pretty soupy.
Still pretty, yeah, it has a lot of broth in it. We don't need to stir that. It's perfect. Now,
Okay.
here's that last trick that we do.
So it's been on high almost
It's
this
been
whole
on
time,
high.
and it's been boiling, and like it reduced, like you said.
It reduced, and so what we're going to do is we've retained some of the water when we boiled the red beans and rice.
Yeah.
And we're just going to actually add back on there, which will be equivalent to a half a cup. That's
So it's
it.
just like bean broth.
It's just bean broth.
Bean broth.
That
and then
sounds really nice. Bean broth.
and then are we going
We're
to
going to drizzle that with a little bit of your oil on the top, and then here's the...
one of the chilies, right?
Yeah, then we're going to put our Scotch bonnet, our habanero, right on top.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
Don't freak out. All that's going to do is the oils from that chili is going to just create another layer of flavor.
I love it.
Yeah, as long as you don't pierce it.
Okay.
If you pierce the pepper, then it's going to be super hot.
Okay.
But if you don't pierce it, it's going to be perfect. And why do we put it on the top? So that when we're finished cooking it,
You can find it.
you can find it, remove it right away, and it doesn't get broken into the rice.
Or you give it to your crazy friend that's going to
There
eat
you go.
it all by himself,
There
right?
you go. That's my husband. He enjoys
Okay.
that. He enjoys that heat.
likes the mouth to just
He
be on
just loves
fire.
it. You know, that's that moment where you just really want that extra layer of heat. That's
Definitely.
it. That's it. Absolutely.
Definitely.
So here we go, making our delicious Creole meatballs. And we
Okay.
started with about 3.5 pounds of ground beef. We're doing about 80-20 on the
Okay.
ground beef. And the only reason I specify is a lot of times you want that little bit of fat in the beef, in your ground beef.
Okay.
You don't want to just...
So 80-20 is like a good hamburger grind, like for making hamburgers, right?
Exactly. That's what you want.
Okay.
And so we have that set aside. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get our milk. Could you get that for me?
Yeah.
It's right behind me.
Yeah, I got some milk.
And what we're going to do is we use something a little bit lighter than like a French baguette,
Okay.
even like a bolillo or a lighter bread.
Okay.
And yes, I use the brown, the whole deal at all. So what
And you just tore it up
I
first
just tore
before
up
you
the
put
bread,
the milk on it.
and I poured that milk on top, and then what that milk is going to do is it's going to absorb into the bread, and it's going to create a really nice binder for our meatballs.
Okay.
So here we go to season. So here are all our wonderful ingredients. We have our eggs. I've already scrambled those for you, kind of mix them together.
So how many eggs was that?
You're going to add 1 egg per pound.
So 1 egg per pound. So
Yeah.
we're right at about 3 pounds,
About
3.5
3 pounds on your
pounds. So
eggs.
3 to 4 eggs.
Right.
All depending on the size of the eggs too, because you
Size
got all
of-
these sizes.
Yeah. So I would start with like a medium.
Okay.
Okay.
Got
And
it.
so I love minced garlic. So think about 4 garlic. We're doing 3, so think about 3 to 4 garlic cloves, depending
Okay.
on how much garlic
So
you
they're
like
getting 1 clove per pound.
per pound. And then I have 1/4 a cup of fresh parsley.
Oh yes.
Use fresh parsley. And then we're back to our Creole seasoning. Now, don't try this at home, but it's going to be equivalent to about 4 tablespoons
Okay.
of Creole seasoning.
So 1 per pound again.
1 per pound, and that's going to be a good way for you to continue to gauge. And so we have 1/2 cup of nicely minced onions. It's you and the habanero.
It is. It's,
See,
it's that Creole seasoning.
It's that
gets
Creole
me.
seasoning. It gets it every time. Okay.
All right. So
Same thing here.
Yep. So the onion and then the bell peppers.
Onion, bell pepper, garlic, half a cup each on all of those.
Got
all right?
it.
And that's all that you need for that as far as our seasoning. Now, one thing I want to make sure, let's not overwork the ground beef.
Okay.
A lot of times
I agree.
that's a big mistake as well. And
You know,
That becomes a
like
problem.
even a tough meatball
Uh-huh.
or a tough meatloaf or
Mm-hmm.
something along those lines, or even a tough like handmade hamburger.
Exactly.
It's because they've overworked the ground beef.
they've overworked it.
And so be gentle, treat it well, and
Be gentle.
it it combines too much of the fibers of the meat,
It does.
and then it ends up being way too much.
Yeah, it just changes the composition altogether. So you
Yes.
really want to make sure that you don't overgrind it. Now, I mean, overmix it. So what we've done here with our bread, we've soaked it in milk, and it's
Yeah.
just become this beautiful light bind. And I just lightly squeeze out the excess milk. And you're going to say, well, how much do I squeeze it out? It still should be nice and moist to the touch.
Okay.
But you don't want,
Yeah,
it shouldn't be dripping.
And it's not falling apart. You can see it almost held together in a nice ball.
Exactly.
When you put it together, and so
Exactly.
Great.
So I'm going to just begin to squeeze that.
So as you're mixing this, let's talk a little bit more about that grill.
Okay. That Creole grill.
So when I go to the food lab and I go to Dat Creole Grill,
Yes.
can I get the Creole meatballs?
Yes, we'll always have the Creole meatballs available to you along with everything else that we'll be featuring here today. So I'm going to treat this like I'm at home, and I'm going to go ahead and take these gloves off
Yeah,
to do
yeah.
some meatballs for you.
Let's do it. So where are we going with them next, once we start forming the meatballs?
So the next thing is I use an all-purpose dredge of flour
Okay.
on the meatballs, and you could use a scooper. You know, I can hear everyone telling me right now, why don't you have your scooper? You know, I learned how to make boulettes from my husband's mom.
And you're talking like an ice cream scoop.
Ice cream scoop. You could do like a 1.5, and a lot of people have them around in their kitchen for making cookies.
Right.
So, but I learned how to make boulettes from my husband's mom.
Boulettes. I love that name.
Yeah, and you know, she never used a scooper. You're not going to find a Creole mom in the kitchen.
Creole mom scooping, huh?
You're not going to find a Creole mom in the kitchen really scooping with the big little meat scooper.
So the one thing that's really unique about this meatball, and believe it or not, I worked for a Spanish restaurant, you know,
Okay.
that we also did this, but you're gonna deep fry
The
these meatballs,
Yes.
which makes it a lot different than like doing the Italian method where you're either searing them in a pan or maybe you're
finishing
cooking
them off in the
in the oven.
Right.
But we're gonna actually deep fry them.
We deep fry them there at the restaurant. When I'm cooking at home, if you don't have a deep fryer, you can do what we do, which was we're going to put a little bit of oil in a saute pan if you wanted to, and you
Okay.
could actually cook them. But for today, we're going to actually put them in our little Dutch oven,
Yep.
and we're going to go ahead and fry them off.
Okay.
So one of the tricks that I do a lot of times for dredging on the meatballs, if I'm on a cookie sheet, I just take the meatballs themselves, I just sprinkle a little flour over it, and then I'm going to roll the whole board. Okay, so there's that little trick where we
That is
getting them
a
all
beautiful
floured.
trick. I really like that. So they're all dredged. I'm going to start deep frying them over here.
Okay, and then what I'll start doing is we're going to start the sauce for our meatballs. And what we're going to do is we're just going to brown some red and green bell peppers. This time of season, you know, you can find I like the bright yellow ones as well. It just adds to nice color.
Right.
So we have that. So we're going to just brown those off. They'll start to caramelize on their own.
Look at that. Those
Aren't they
are looking
beautiful?
gorgeous.
They are.
Give them a little bit longer.
Then I'm just going to add a little bit of fresh parsley. And I think you'll have to go to the restaurant to get this delicious Creole sauce, but the meatballs, they usually we finish it off with the Creole sauce and the mushroom, Creole sauce in the broth. And as that starts to simmer, then those delicious meatballs are going to be topped with that Creole sauce.
So how'd I do?
Pretty good. At home, you're going to cook them a little bit longer, but the color is perfect.
Color's perfect.
Color is absolutely perfect. So then there's our delicious meatballs. And here, if you want any more spice, this is the place where you go ahead and add
Okay.
a little bit of chilies or a little bit more heat at that point. Then we finish that off, and then that's poured over our Creole meatballs.
Okay. That looks amazing.
Absolutely delicious.
So what we'll do is we're really looking forward to the beans and rice, and we have the Creole meatballs. So we'll come back, we'll kind of plate some stuff up, and we'll start on the, say it again for me, the
Griot.
we'll start on the griot.
Delicious succulent pork.
And so I'm really excited about the griot. And so we'll bring these dishes all together with the griot, and we'll go from there. All right?
Looking forward to it.
All right. All right, so we're back, and now you're going to show us a very, very special dish. Explain it to me. Explain the name and the origin and all that.
Absolutely. This originates in Haiti, and that's where our family is from. My husband is from Haiti, his mom's from Haiti, and his dad is from Cuba. And when you go to Haiti, this would be considered like our holiday special occasion food. You don't go to Haiti without having griot.
Griot.
And that's what we're making today.
How's it spelled?
G-R-I-O-T.
G-R-I-O-T, so
Yes.
griot.
Yes, so it's a delicious pork. You could use a pork shoulder, you could use pork butt, and it's going to be cubed in about 1-inch cubes. But this is the dish that you find. I mean, this is like our tacos. This is our street food.
Gotcha.
Every time you have a special occasion, you're going to find griot on the table.
And how's it normally, like if I was eating it in, you know, on the street, would it be in some sort of vessel, or would I just have a bowl of it? Or
They would be served either with rice, or we'll serve it with our plantains, which comes with every single meal that we serve.
It does.
That
and
at
they
the grill.
are delicious.
Yeah,
The plantains at the grill are delicious.
Yeah, so when you go to the Creole Grill there at the lab, what you're going to find is every meal is served with either our green plantains or our sweet. And a lot of people are confused by it. It's the exact same vegetable. It is a vegetable. It becomes a fruit when it turns ripe, but you can have green or sweet. So typically, griot is served with green plantains, with rice, stacked up, and with succulent. This item right here, which is called pickles, and we'll get to that later, which is like our pickled cabbage.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely. We'll do that later when we eat this stuff.
Absolutely.
Eat
so
the griot.
Let me show you how we make this. It's a dish that you have to be in love with because it really needs to marinate overnight.
Take some time.
Take some time, and typically it marinates in lemons, limes, sour orange. If you can't find good sour orange, you could use a regular orange or I like to use, if I can't get a sour orange, I like to use a pink grapefruit.
All right, so that was the lemons.
So lemon.
Now the grapefruit, and you're just trying to hold it from having the seeds go into the meat.
Yeah, I'm just holding it for the meat. And then we actually, what we refer to as we're washing the meat.
Okay.
We're scrubbing it with the fruit.
That. And you're wanting that enzyme that's in the fresh citrus to kind of attack those meat fibers and start breaking them down.
Yeah,
right?
that's where your marination is going to come from. It's going to come from all the fruit, the oranges, the limes. And so once that's squeezed all those juices in there, we have what I'm going to call our griot sauce. And we just do this in the restaurant.
Okay.
But what we've done is we've taken fresh parsley, fresh thyme, garlic, pima, onions, and we have the juice of sour oranges here as well.
Oh, okay.
And lemons, and just a little bit of apple cider vinegar.
Oh, delicious.
Okay, and so you can see where all of the tenderness is going to come from. So we pour that over the meat. That marinates. And then we do, for this amount, I would do about a cup of onions.
Like just julienne onions.
Just julienne onions. And that's all going to be cooking together, but it's actually part of the marinade.
Okay.
Okay?
So we marinate this for how long?
This, I would prefer for it to marinate overnight.
Overnight.
So we can say that it's marinated overnight. We also we're going to put some whole fresh thyme, and I'll show you how we do that.
Okay.
So let's just say we've marinated this overnight.
Correct.
We're going to pour it into our stock pot or our Dutch oven. And don't be concerned, do I need to add water or anything like that? There's going to be a lovely broth that's going to just going to seep off of that pork. It's going to be
it makes its own sort of sauce.
It's going to make its own.
does.
Yeah, it's going to make its own broth. You don't have to add any additional water to that at all. And so right on top of that, I add a few fresh fresh thymes, just so that I can take it right out.
So some thyme branches, basically.
Yes, and then
Sprigs.
once again, I put a whole pima. Now,
Yes.
in the grill, for me, I usually pierce it.
Okay.
Because I want that additional heat.
You want the heat.
I want the heat. So
And
I
so
just do
you
it.
just tear it a little
Just
bit.
a light pierce. I still
Okay.
leave it on the top.
Okay, so we have this up to a boil simmering, right?
Right. And so what we're going to do is get that, we're going to have that covering.
Okay.
And so let's just say once that is completely done after 1 hour.
Yeah.
So what we're
So
gonna-
1 hour of cooking time.
1 hour cooking time.
On low?
On low.
Okay.
And then what we've done is we've taken the pork and we've drained off all of the broth.
Right.
Okay, because now it's time to fry.
So this is what it looks like
This
after
is what
it's
it
cooked.
looks like after it's cooked. This is step 2 on our pork.
And so this is cooked, cooled, and drained.
Cooked, cool, and drained. And so we've kept some of the broth to the side because we're going to use that a little
Okay.
bit later.
Okay.
All right?
So we're back to our deep fryer
Back
then.
to our deep fryer. Do you think
Okay.
it's ready for us?
I think it's ready. We can sort of check it out.
Okay, we're good to go. You may want to
Yeah.
step back because there's still a little bit of moisture that's on that.
Okay.
And we want to drain as much of the broth off as possible when you're frying.
Yeah, it's gonna get a little angry, right?
Yeah. But I love that spider.
Yes.
That spider's going to be really helpful. Let's let some of those bubbles go down. There we go. So we got
So
that
how long
working.
does this fry for?
It's going to fry. It's going to start to float to the top. It's going to be golden brown. So let's keep in mind that it is done already. It is
Yes.
fully cooked.
Right.
But what we're doing right now is that we are just causing the outsides to become nice and brown,
Got it.
golden brown, and it's going to be perfect.
Got it.
So while that's browning, deep frying, we're going to saute some onions.
Beautiful.
And what I like to do at this point is I just like to add a little bit of sugar.
Oh. Just get a little caramelization
Just to
on
get
it,
a little
huh?
caramelization going on our onions. It's going to be really nice.
Beautiful.
And it's starting to happen for us right away.
And you know, while we're doing this, one of the things that I'm really interested with, and probably people at home are really interested with, is tell us a little bit more about you. How'd you learn to cook? How'd you get interested in cooking? Give us that story.
Well, I mean, and it's a long story, but the short of the long of it is I have several lives. I started off in fashion design.
Fashion design.
Yes, my husband and I, we actually fell.
Already creative, right?
Yeah, so that creative stream was already there. We actually met in college, fell in love, and when I took my very first job right out of college, I was working for a resort, a European resort that's all over the Caribbean. And so that was my first job out of college. You know,
And you've traveled all over the Caribbean,
I've had a
right?
beautiful opportunity to travel personally and also right out of college working as a costumier. I was a costume designer.
Costume designer.
Yes, and so during that process and falling in love with the Caribbean, I had a chance to make an exchange. I'll teach you how to design if you teach me how to do beautiful sauces.
And it was a daughter of some
It was
chef
a daughter
that you
of
really
one of the
liked,
yeah,
right?
yeah. But so I had this opportunity. I would train them
How we
in
looking
fashion
here?
design.
How we looking on
Oh,
a
it
little
looks
longer?
absolutely beautiful.
Pull them?
Yeah, let's pull them, put them to the side.
Okay, so, all right. So
yeah.
you're
So-
teaching fashion design,
Teaching-
you're talking to the chef.
Chef, and so the exchange for me was I had an opportunity. Oh, look at that, beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Had an opportunity to learn a lot of French techniques. Sauces were my favorite, so I learned a lot, and I was able to travel. So I've worked in the Bahamas, Eleuthera, Bahamas, Cancun, Mexico. I was in Vail, Colorado. So I've traveled a lot. Turk and Caicos.
Turk and Caicos,
Yeah,
too.
absolutely beautiful. Look at that, starting to caramelize. Now what I've done is I've actually taken the stock, the broth that was on the pork,
Yeah.
poured it back into the onion,
Okay.
and then this is the original marinade that we use. I add about a half a cup to that.
Beautiful.
Now we're gonna add the pork back into that
Okay.
and let it come to Let it simmer on high and let some of that broth reduce, and it's going to be perfect. Absolutely perfect. But yeah, I just had this beautiful opportunity, and I could not say any more. Not only did I get some training at that well, but a lot of the Caribbean food that I've learned, I actually learned from my husband's mom.
Oh, really?
So the tradition, Marie taught me all of that, and then my mom has 5 sisters, so there was a lot of cooking going on in my mom's family, and so between the two, my mom gave me the southern side because my mom's side of the family is from Alabama.
Yeah.
My husband's side of the family is from Cuba and Haiti.
Yeah.
So all those flavors together. Can you imagine what my Thanksgiving looks like?
Oh, man. And essentially that's what's inspired the restaurant, right?
That's why we call it that.
Dat.
People say, what island? Dat island. It's
Dat
our
island.
island. It's
Right.
Carlos Island. It's my island.
And it's all like one word, right? The island.
Dat island. No, it's 2. It's Dat.
is?
D-H-A-T, just a play on words.
Okay.
And so it's Dat Island. So
Island.
when you come visit us, whether it be in Riverside or our sister store there in, well, actually the big store.
The mother store.
The mother store in Redlands, wherever you visit us, you're going to have a Dat experience, which
Right.
is the flavors of the Caribbean as well as the South.
Right. And the chances are you're going to meet either you or some of your family.
We're going to
at
be,
some point.
absolutely, absolutely.
So that is awesome.
So I think those red beans and rice may be
Can we
almost
take a look
done.
at
Let's take a
those?
look at those while these
All
are
right.
simmering.
Let me get this back on. And so we're going to look at the red beans and rice.
Oh my goodness. Look at that.
That looks amazing.
Now, I just feel as if you actually just cook this at home. I mean, I'm just talking
Yeah.
to your audience. You just cook this at home. I mean, there's no reason your rice will not look just like mine.
Right.
Because if you just follow those instructions, you're going to have a nice, flaky,
It is
grain
gorgeous.
rice. Yeah.
It smells delicious. All the
Enjoy.
smells seem just absolutely amazing.
Going to reduce that.
And so this is what we're going to do. We're going to kind of bring this all together.
Okay.
And our final recipe that we're going to cook is going to be the beignets.
Oh,
And
looking forward to that.
I've been looking forward to the beignets since we first started talking because I come and eat them at your restaurant all the time.
That's how you finish a meal, with a delicious, light, fluffy beignet.
And so we'll plate these up, and then we'll kind of move into beignets, and we'll go from there. Okay, and we'll let this still needs to reduce for a while,
Just
right?
a little bit, and they'll be perfect.
Okay, all right, gang. We'll be right back, and we'll see you in a minute. Okay, so we're back. We're gonna
Yes.
do beignets.
I know.
So I'm so excited to see how you do beignets.
Yes, we are really excited about sharing that with you today, and hopefully everyone in Riverside and all the full audience will be making beignets.
Yes.
All right, so first we're going to start off with our flour. We're going to have the recipe made available for you. What we're doing here is I'm starting off with 8 cups of flour,
All-purpose flour.
all-purpose flour,
Wonderful.
and then we're going to have 2 tablespoons of yeast.
And that's just the instant dried yeast, like they can get
Right.
that.
I'm dealing with the instant dry yeast, and I just use a half a teaspoon of baking soda.
And so that's interesting. You're using
I'm
the
using-
yeast and the baking soda together.
I'm using the yeast because previously we used cornstarch, and I didn't like the balance. Actually, that little bit of cornstarch that's actually in the baking powder adds a little specialness to the crisp.
Gotcha.
So we don't need a lot of leaven because obviously we have the yeast.
Right.
And then yeast loves sugar, so
Love sugar.
love sugar. That's what they feed on, and so it's half a cup. Well, a little bit more than that, but 3/4 of a cup of sugar. And so what I like to do is I like to mix all of my dry ingredients
And just
all
whisk
together.
it all together.
Whisking it all together because we want to get that leaven all the way through all of the dry ingredients at that point.
And let me explain really fast. So what she
Sure.
keeps saying about leaven is leaven means that it's rising. And
Right.
so the yeast helps everything rise, the baking powder helps everything rise. And so that's what we mean by leaven.
Absolutely.
All right. So what's next now?
What's next that's going to make this really luscious is we've melted 3 tablespoons of butter here in the milk
Okay.
and water, and it's 50-50. And what we're having is we have exactly 3.5 cups of that all together. And what I like to do is you want to make sure that your liquid is room temperature.
Gotcha.
A lot of recipes you'll see, they'll say lukewarm,
Okay.
because if it's too hot, it'll kill your yeast.
So are you talking like 80 or 70 or
Yeah, and
somewhere in between 80 and
Yeah,
70?
and do use a thermometer. I'm so accustomed to doing it by
Feel.
feel all the time that, but when you're at home working on this, you want to make sure that you do use a thermometer. It's going to help you have a beautiful, fluffy beignet.
We'll call it like body temperature a lot of times.
Yeah.
So almost like a warm bath,
Exactly.
right, is what you're looking for.
Now, you could use your conventional mixer.
Okay.
I just prefer doing it by hand. It's just kind of like a habit. It's like a family habit. But when we're making them there even when we make them at the grill there at the Food Lab,
Yes.
we do all of our mixing of our beignets double batch by hand. And
Really?
Yes, and so we make up to 8 batches of beignets every single day. Well, actually, 16 batches. We do half batch in the morning, and then we get beignets ready. So you'll always be able to come and have a hot beignet.
Hot beignet, and they are spectacular. You know, I've been to Food Lab multiple times now, and I always stop by and get your beignets. It's something that is like a tradition for my wife and I to come by. My daughter loves them. They're really, really delicious. So.
Now, here's this tricky part.
Okay.
A lot of times, if you're doing this at home, you're going to freak out a little bit because you're going to think the dough is too wet.
Okay.
It's not too wet because you want it really moist. And what's going to happen is your beignets are going to remain really light and fluffy. And what tends to happen is people overwork their dough and it's too dry, and your beignets are really heavy. And we like light and fluffy beignets.
So we're not necessarily trying to like develop gluten in the flour like you would for, say, a bread dough or
Yeah,
a
like a
pizza
yeast
dough
bread
or
or-
something,
exactly.
right? Even though there's yeast in it, but it's more of a fluffy pastry type of dough that's supposed to be really tender, right?
It really is. And now I'm going to get my hand right in there. I just put a couple tablespoons of AP all-purpose flour on the top.
Okay.
Then I'm just going to sprinkle my board lightly.
Yeah.
And this is where all the magic happens. Keep your hands nice and floured. And then what I do is I just do a light mix on it. And I'm telling you, you should put your hand in there. You see how sticky that is?
Yeah. Oh,
That's-
yeah. Yeah, you can see that it wants to stick to me.
Yeah, you want it really nice and sticky like that because
Okay.
that's going to guarantee that you're going to have a beautiful, light and fluffy beignet. And then what I do is, you can see it kind of all comes together there.
Yeah.
And similar to when you're making like a pizza dough, don't be disturbed by all of that goodness in there. You're going to be just fine. I
Okay.
drizzle the bowl with oil,
Gotcha.
put the baby right back in there,
Uh-huh.
put a little bit of oil on top, and that's just going to keep the top nice and smooth.
And we're using canola oil.
I'm using canola oil.
Canola oil for it.
And, you know, we're so in love with olive oil. You know, everyone's so in
Yes,
love with olive
right,
oil, but
right.
when you're baking beignets in particular, I would stay away from olive oil because it's going to change the flavor.
Strong flavors.
Too
yes.
strong, it's too strong. You need something that's very clear and very light.
Okay.
So we're going to cover up our baby, and then she needs to rise for about 25 to 30 minutes.
Beautiful. And so we just cover it up with a towel, and then we'll just sort of set it in a warm place.
Absolutely.
We want to make sure that it's not setting on top of anything too hot because that will also kill the yeast.
It'll kill the yeast, and actually the dough itself will start to cook, and we don't want that at all. So I would say adjacent to heat or indirect heat, but a nice, with no draft. Please don't put it anywhere where there's a draft because
Okay.
that's going to change the texture of your beignets as well.
Okay, so no wind. No
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 wind.
open window.
No open windows, no matter
Okay.
what you see on television.
But nice, kind of just warm room, you know,
Yeah.
winter's coming, and so it can be in a nice toasty area or something like that, and it's fine.
Exactly.
Okay, so Angela and I are gonna wash our hands, and
Yes.
we're gonna set our baby dough aside, and then we'll be right back. All right, so now we're gonna look at how the dough looks after it's risen.
Yes.
So here's the beignet dough. So you brought some from the restaurant, right?
I did, and it's risen so nice.
Gorgeous.
I love that smell of fresh yeast. Isn't that just
you know
lovely?
what's cool about it is on the container you can really see the bubbles before it ends up collapsing. You know, you can
Right.
see how it's risen.
Look at that, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's really beautiful.
And you want to see those bubbles. Those are like a telltale sign that something great's about to happen.
Right.
Because if you don't have that, we're going to break it down just a little bit, and you can see how it starts to collapse.
Yeah, so you just kind of punch the dough a
Punch
little
it
bit
down.
is essentially what you're doing.
I know, my daughter loves that part.
Yeah.
So we do that.
How many kids do you have?
I have 4. I would love to say kids now, but they're all big kids.
All big kids.
But they're still all my babies. So
Your
I have-
youngest daughter just graduated from high school, right?
Yeah, my youngest daughter, actually she'll be graduating this year. Her name is Charisse, and then I have Fabrice, my oldest son. He's 30. He doesn't want me to let anyone know. And then my son, right next to him is Joshua. So Joshua is my sous chef there at the grill. Fabrice is my general manager for all my restaurants. And my daughter Charisse doesn't want to do anything. How's that? No, I'm just joking. But she comes and works at the grill on the weekends, and she really
You were
enjoys
saying
it.
she's looking for colleges.
We're saying she's looking out for colleges right now, so that's the
Good.
season of life that she's in.
Good.
Look how beautiful that is.
Yes. And I love that your sons, one's the manager of your restaurants, and the other one's the sous chef of Dat Grill in the food lab.
Yes.
And so that is fantastic.
It's a family business. We just really enjoy working together, and all my family, we're all so creative.
I've seen your husband there a lot too.
Yeah, and my husband, we keep him around because, you know, after 32 years, I had an idea, I had a dream, I had a vision almost 10 years ago to open the restaurant. And he said, okay, I'm in it with you. You know,
Oh, man.
I'll do whatever I can do.
Supportive, huh?
He's so supportive. And 10 years later, he hasn't left. He was supposed to go in for about 3 or 4 just to help me out. And
That's nice.
he's still here. So actually what I've done is I've divided the dough into 4 sections.
Now you're folding them.
I'm folding them just for uniformity. You don't
Okay.
have to, and it's just to keep them out. And you'll be surprised at how many beignets. Isn't that
The
beautiful?
dough, it's like a pillow.
It is a pillow, and
It's
that's
an
what.
absolute pillow.
That's how we
Look at
describe.
that.
That's how we describe the beignets at the
And it
restaurant.
springs right back, and it just feels so soft, and
And
I'm
you
ready
wa-
to eat it now.
I know you want to look for that too, and so you don't need anything really fancy, but we do use like a pizza cutter. Now, it's
Pizza
up to
cutter.
you.
Yeah.
We do about a 1/2 inch squares to an
Okay.
inch squares there at the restaurant. So when you're coming in the grill, this is what they look like. Now, traditional technique is just to drop the beignet away from you
Okay.
until you'll see it drop
Okay.
really light. But when you're making so many, these are going to be humongous
Okay.
because they're going to see how much they stretch out.
Yeah.
They're going to double in size. So I think
Let's talk about the oil a second. So we have canola oil here.
right.
And it's sitting at right about 350 degrees.
It'll
That
be-
we're going in. We didn't use a thermometer, but you could use like a candy thermometer or some sort of deep frying thermometer. You could
Absolutely.
use tabletop fryers if you want. I know that you're a fan
Right.
of those. And so, however you want to do it.
Okay, what I like to do for sure is when you're making your beignets at home, you want to wait. See how they look like just these little gorgeous pillows.
Yeah, they're
They
gorgeous.
are absolutely lovely. And so we want to wait until they're a little bit more golden brown. And the
Okay.
beignet will really talk to you. We're going to splash a little oil on the top, and that's just going to help on the speeding process.
Okay.
And you can see they're getting nice and fluffy, and they're golden brown.
Yes.
And we're going to just let them do it. Oh, they smell so good. They smell so good. The crew around here is going to be really happy in just a minute.
They are. They are. We're making people at home's mouths water. I
I
guarantee
know.
it.
Now, traditionally, tradition from that island.
Yeah.
We like to sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon in the flour
Okay.
when we're rolling it, because I just happen to like what happens to the beignet when that cinnamon hits the oil.
Yeah.
Versus mixing the cinnamon into the dough, because it changes the color
Gotcha.
a little bit. So I add the cinnamon very thin, and it makes it really bright, really
Just
fresh.
a little extra
Just a
flavor and spice,
Just
right?
layers of yumminess.
Nice.
Creole food altogether, when you talk about Creole food, the term is it's all in the mix. Creole means a mixture, because
Oh, really?
Creole is originated from African and Spanish and Haitian, and all of those flavors pulled together, and the French, of course.
Yes.
And all those layers of flavor together makes good Creole food. So you'll see throughout all of our segments, we're always adding layers of food. So that little bit of cinnamon at the end is just one more layer.
Nice. So then we just have a pan here that has some paper towels on it, right? And we just want to drain them.
Now this is a lovely little tool right here. We call it a spider. I was just telling Chef Robert, the original ones that I have, I've got it at an Asian market, but now everyone has such a food crave, you could probably even find it at your local grocery store.
Probably.
Yeah. So there we are with these.
But it's kind of essential for making something like this versus trying to grab them with tongs and maybe crushing them.
Absolutely.
Or something like that.
Now,
So do you do the powdered sugar right away?
we do the powdered sugar right away.
Okay.
And so there is where
Look at
all of
that.
I mean, who doesn't want this for Christmas?
Right.
Look how beautiful that is. Oh my gosh.
They are gorgeous.
So, I mean, this is the place, this is what, oh my gosh. So you guys have to get over to the food lab as soon as possible
Yes.
and load up on your beignets.
So we're gonna keep frying some beignets. We're gonna
Absolutely.
plate these up, make them look delicious.
Okay.
And we're gonna taste them and do that whole jazz. And
Great.
so we'll be right back. Make these beignets at home, you guys. This looks great, Angela.
Oh,
And-
I forgot to tell you, you can also get these with sauces. When you come to the grill, that Creole grill at the Food Lab, make sure you get your raspberry chocolate or white chocolate sauce to go with those lovely light pillowy beignets.
that sounds delicious.
I'm not gonna wait.
There you go. I'm not gonna wait either.
Look at that.
We're gonna go right into it. They look really delicious and hot and right in.
Oh my God.
All right, gang. We'll be right back. Enjoy some beignets.
All right.
All right. So now it comes to my favorite part.
Yay.
And we're going to get to eat some of this stuff. And you're going to plate it up for us and make it
Yeah,
look all
please,
pretty.
please,
And
please.
so here's the red beans and rice. Man, those smell so good.
Oh yeah.
And so,
So we have our delicious red beans and rice
a little bit of that on the bottom.
on the bottom.
Oh, man.
And then we have our Creole meatballs. I mean, who doesn't want
Yeah,
that?
I am ready.
You want to make sure that you get
The peppers and the onions, huh?
peppers and the onions on top of that.
Really good.
And then just going to finish it off. Remember, that's that same Creole sauce.
Yeah, the same Creole sauce. Looks amazing.
And what is so lovely about the meatballs and the Creole dishes all together is that everything at the restaurant comes with your choice of sweet or green plantains.
Gotcha.
So that is going to be
So
absolutely
that's
yummy.
a dish.
That's a dish.
That's ready to rock.
That's ready to go. You'll
Oh,
all be
man.
ready to go. That's going to be lovely.
Okay.
And then we're going to try those red beans and rice, which is going to create a completely different flavor. One time you come, get the meatballs. Next time you come, get the red beans and rice.
Right. I might come and get both,
There you go.
just so you know.
You can do a combo plate. You can have a little bit of pork, a little bit of griot. You have the option of having both. So we're going to have that succulent pork, and remember that's
And this pork is so delicious. I've had it at the restaurant before. I'm really excited to taste it all homemade.
griot is the dish of Haiti. It is the dish of the islands. And one thing that we cannot finish having our griot without topping it with pickles. That's a new word for us.
Pickles.
Pickles.
And so what is pickles?
And so it's a pickled cabbage,
Okay.
and we top off our pork with the pickled cabbage.
It looks beautiful.
But it has once again, it has that Scotch bonnet. It has
Right.
onions and garlic and that apple cider vinegar.
Yeah.
And then we let that
We're gonna have to do
marinate
another class with you just
on the pickled
yeah,
cabbage.
just on
You know, I
this
put this up here. Would you like to taste it?
yeah.
Here, why
Yeah,
don't we
that'd be
taste that one?
Let's taste it.
Okay.
Let's jump in there. Excellent. I'm getting some pork and some rice
Yeah.
and a little bit of pickles if I can get it on there.
Do. And then I'm big on Creole sauce on everything.
Okay.
Isn't that yummy? I mean, just the
That's
rice
so
by
good.
itself. Just the rice by itself can be a dish altogether. And one thing about our rices is that they are vegetarian.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
There's no meat product in our
Right.
rice items at all. And so this is just a
So
nice
I could come and
departure.
get rice and plantains, like if I'm mostly eating,
A plant,
a plant-based diet or something
You
like
could
that.
have that, and then we have other delicious items. We have a delicious smoked portobello that goes great with our rice.
Okay, and then
We can't,
finally,
we can't end it without the
plantain. Finally, beignets.
This is how we do it. You could end every meal with our beignets, or you can start with the beignets.
That's right.
Because our beignet window is running all day long, all night.
So
Well,
you
not
just-
all night, but at least until about 11.
So you just pile them up.
Pile 'em
have
up.
a big family-style plate of them.
Yeah, you can get them, if you say, oh, I don't want to commit to that much, you can get,
Who wouldn't want to commit to that much?
there's that one. Well, we have 4. You can get 4. You
Yeah.
can get 4, you can get 8, you can get 12. But isn't that yummy?
Oh my goodness. I feel like I'm in New Orleans.
Oh, there you go.
So-
But you're actually in Riverside, California.
That's right.
There you go.
So, Angela, it's been so great having you on the show.
Oh, it's been our pleasure.
Thank you for showing
having
me
us.
this stuff.
Thank you
Yes.
so much.
So, give us a quick recap.
Okay, so we have our delicious, succulent griot, which is succulent pork over red beans and rice with green plantains.
Delicious.
And then we have our Creole meatballs, known as boulettes, with red beans and rice, with sweet plantains. And then we cannot leave out our delicious, hot, fluffy, pillowy beignets.
Beignets. God, I feel like I'm in New Orleans. Or Haiti.
Or Riverside.
Or Riverside. So please, everybody, get over to Dat Island, get over to Dat Creole Grill here in the Food Lab here in Riverside and Dat Island out in Redlands. They're anxious to see you. It's just a
Absolutely.
fantastic thing that we have here in Riverside. And we're so glad that you're here with us finally, that we got you here to Riverside.
And we're excited about being in Riverside.
So thank you so much. Everybody at home, try out these dishes and just keep cooking.